If you asked 10 people at your company what your product does, you'd probably get 10 slightly different answers. And each one probably sounds fine on its own, but together they kind of muddy the water, especially on sales calls, on your website, and now in what LLMs say about you. Keeping everyone on the same page is just one of the many jobs a great product marketer owns. And in our conversation today with Brian McCarty, he shares his fix, and we get kind of into that in the episode. Brian has spent about 15 years in fintech product marketing. He was the first product marketing manager at Banno. He then built the product marketing function from scratch at Hummingbird, the compliance platform. And at Aurum, he started out as director of marketing and ended up running the whole product team. Today, he's doing product marketing at Lead Bank, the FDIC-insured API-first banking-as-a-service platform that fintechs use to add accounts, payments, cards, and lending to their own products. They raised $70 million at Series B last year at a $1.47 billion valuation. And in this episode, we get into the one-page messaging house he uses to get an entire company on the same page, how to get product marketing into the roadmap early, including a little thing that he adds to every PRD, the Money 2020 donut shop play that he helped execute at Aurum and how that tied back to pipeline, and finally, how he's using AI and different bots in his work as product marketer without losing, the writing skill behind it. Let's get to the conversation. You're listening to the FinTech Marketing Lab podcast. I'm Araminta from Mint Studios, a content marketing agency specialized in the fintech space. And this podcast is where we experiment, explore, and break down how fintech marketing actually works in practice. Each episode, I talk with top fintech marketers about what they're testing, what they're learning, and how they're pushing the boundaries of brand, strategy, and team building. With that, let's get into today's episode. Amazing. So the first question I want to ask you, Brian, is that you have shifted quite a lot between product marketing and product marketing. And that's kind of the theme that I want to focus on in this episode. So I'd love to hear, from your perspective, what made you switch between the two? And now you're in a product marketing role. What do you like about that role? And why do you stick to the product side of things?
Yeah, great question. Folks who don't know me, looked at my LinkedIn titles and all that, it can be like, whoa, he's jumped around a lot, but really it's been a very natural progression. I very much started my career in tech as a product marketer at early stage startup, Banno back in the day, a digital banking platform. And when you join a startup, regardless of your title, you do a lot of things. So even though I was entering as this product marketing manager, managing our positioning and just how we do product launches, I was also learning about events and setting up our trade show booth and manning the booth. I was working with a local SEO agency doing some demand gen spend, super small. So you're learning all these things, but my roots, I very much came up as a product marketer. I've worked and reported directly to technical founders. I was surrounded by developers, engineers. So I've always gravitated towards product marketing. But I'd say because of that experience, it allowed me then to branch out, and I actually became a product manager for a little bit, and then ultimately kind of came back to marketing. And I would say even as I've been director of marketing, I've always still been the one doing the product marketing bit. I'd say no matter what your title is as a marketing leader, you kind of have something that you is your special sauce that you kind of lean in towards. And then maybe you have a team that's doing the other things, or you're working with agencies or contractors or whatever it may be. So my strong suit, the thing that I've kind of always loved, has always been product marketing. And then I'm just filling those other gaps with, again, either agencies I'm working with or filling out that team accordingly. But even when my title's been head of marketing, director of marketing, I still love to hold on to the product marketing. That's the part and the bit that I've always enjoyed.
Yeah, I can understand that they call it the T-shaped marketer, right? So every marketer's got that one skill that they have or that they love, and then everything else is kind of generalist a little bit.
That's right. And you can't always tell from the title, but it's when you dig in and work with that person, it's oh, okay, this person's demand gen. That's where they came up. That's they're going to own, and that's kind of their specialty. But yeah, mine's always been product marketing.
And how, sometimes I get marketers, more junior marketers asking, how did you know? What are some signs that maybe you should become a product marketer? Say you love marketing, but you're wondering if maybe you should get into product marketing and maybe this is your thing. What are the yeah, the signs that this is maybe the specialty for this person?
It's a great question. I would, as I was coming up a long time ago and doing events and other things, it was always interesting, but I always gravitated towards, I wanted to understand like how the software we were building actually worked. And I found myself thinking of features, or the closer I got to our customers is like, oh, I've heard this customer talk about this thing they really want. And then I'd be over there like talking to the engineers and the designers about this customer call I just came off of, like, hey, this customer really needs this thing. So like those things, like I was just naturally like, I found myself wanting to unblock our customers. And I was always thinking of like features that we should be building. So if your mind gravitates towards that, like that's a great sign that you should head down the product marketing. Product marketers tend to be a little bit closer to the roadmap, closer to working hand in hand with product managers, developers, engineers. Whereas if you're off running events, there's a lot of joy and fun doing that too, but you're a little further away from like actually the software that's being built behind the scenes.
Yeah, or if maybe you love like the content side of things, which is what we're more, or I am like the content, that's my tea. But also, I agree with you, I love the features. Content also has an element of features because you have to understand them really deeply and how they solve specific pain points in order to create that. And then you've also got, if you're someone who loves like demand gen or like seeing ROI spent from Google Ads or whatever, like there's so many different elements to that. And if you love all of those things, well, maybe
go work for a startup and you might be able to get to do a little bit of everything.
You'll do everything.
That's
right.
Pretty
good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good tip. So yeah, let's talk about product roadmap a little bit. You can talk about maybe how you do this at Lead, but also or how you did it previously at Aurum. So feel free to reference both. What was your role in the roadmap? Where would you get started? And what part of it did you do, I guess, or?
Yeah, great question. So I'll reference at Aurum because it was interesting because I headed up marketing. I joined Aurum and headed up marketing, but then eventually I led product as well. So there was kind of over the couple of years, 2.5 years I was there's this natural progression. Me leading marketing, really taking product marketing from 0 to 1, doing product launches. And then with that, getting closer and closer to our customers and doing lots of customer insight calls and leading research with the product manager. So I was kind of over here leading marketing. And then we had some junior PMs I was kind of helping usher down this path of like user research and interviews and insights, feeding that to the product org. And then eventually I ended up kind of leading the product org as well. So there's kind of this natural progression of like, it started slow of like, hey, let's just start doing user calls and research. Then let's actually start building those into insights and recommendations for the roadmap. And then all of a sudden it was like, we had this machine that was kind of feeding the product roadmap. So over time, it was a very natural progression for me at Aurum.
And as a product marketer, like now at Lead, like where do you step in for that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've been at Lead now 6 months and I'm still learning like where my impact will be. Like when I joined, there's kind of some big rocks that was pointed at right away, overhauling our documentation site. So docs.lead.bank, that was one of them. So I haven't gotten entirely involved, but the thing I would say is now documentation, for example, is becoming an item on the roadmap. I would say before I joined it, maybe it wasn't. It was very reactionary. It was like the PMs were writing stuff and putting it out there, but a lot of times it was kind of after the fact. So even that's a very small example, but it's now when we're doing our roadmap review, it's like there's a column on there, there's an item on there for what are we doing on our doc site? What content pieces are we going to, big brand new content guides are we going to get out this quarter? So now we're starting to have those conversations. So that's a very subtle way we're starting to impact the roadmap. And I think over time that will just become more and more as I work closer and closer with the product org.
And I guess in an ideal situation, like ideal fintech, ideal roadmap and all that, where do you think the product marketer fits into that? Like where are they at the beginning, middle and end? Where should they sit?
Yeah, I think it is all three. I think ideally you're doing product marketers are close to customers. Obviously, product managers are as well, but like really synthesizing those insights and feeding that into the product org to help make informed decisions about the roadmap and where the business needs to go. So that's the first part. And then I'd say the middle, because as a product marketer, hopefully those things are then getting built and you're helping actually launch them and think about, okay, you guys are now building this. What does it look like to actually like send this out into the world? What does that launch look like? And then hopefully, this doesn't always happen on the tail end. It's like, okay, we launched this thing. Like, what did it do? Did it drive the business forward? Did it unblock things for it? So it really is like all three, and it really depends on the maturity of the organization. I've definitely been in spots where you're only doing the middle part. Like you are seen as a product marketer just doing launches. That's what you're there for. And it's kind of on you to help shape that org and say like, oh, actually product marketing can do so much more. And that comes over time. That comes with trust that comes with a lot of things, but I'd say over time, you ideally want to be impacting all three spots.
Yeah. What I often see is product marketers are only involved towards the end.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, why is it so important to involve product marketer right from the beginning? Like, at what step should you involve them in the product roadmap or feature launch or whatever it is? And why is that so important?
I've witnessed this at Lead already, and we're learning as I settle in as well, but like I have access to it and I get the chance to review PRDs in the early draft form. And maybe that's too early. Some of that's just been my own onboarding and understanding our platform and what we're building. But even then, if I'm reading an early draft of a product requirements doc and kind of following that thing along over the weeks and months that it's being built, that just like starts to register language for me. And then fast forward a month when the engineering and PM are talking about, there's a simple example, but they're talking about what they should call that endpoint in an API. They might come tap the product manager because it's a word. They're trying to decide, like, should we call this endpoint X or should we call it Y? And if you have that, you've kind of been following along, you might have a stronger opinion versus if you're just coming into this conversation cold. So it's more like you're kind of tagging along if you can. And that's not always possible. We all have lots of things to do. But it's like having awareness of what the team's building so that when it comes to these conversations, you can kind of raise your hand and say like, hey, I have more of a macro view and I think we should call this thing X because over here we're talking about it this way and over here we're doing this. And sometimes the product managers and the engineers working on the thing are so down in the weeds. Like they're just building the thing that they need to get out the door. They don't necessarily have that macro view of how we're talking about things out in the market or how we're positioning it on the business development side of the house or how we're thinking about it at an event, all these other things. So I feel like the product marketer kind of has this macro view and kind of can connect the dots between all those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then would you also help maybe put together that document, that product requirements doc, or would you maybe also because I imagine at that stage, you still need someone who has the perspective of the customer, who's going to say, look, this sub feature doesn't make sense or whatever. Like, what's your input apart from the wording that you used as an example? What is your other input that you try and include there?
Yeah, definitely. And again, it depends on the org, but at Lead, it's very welcome to comment, make suggestions. But usually at top of our PRDs, there is a section of like, what problem is this solving, right? And it might even just be helping that PM like reframe that. They might have 18 bullet points about the problem we're solving. And you, as someone who does a lot of writing as a product marketer, you may be able to come in and really synthesize those 18 bullets down to like 2 really impactful sentences. So it might even be that. It's like you're helping that PM better position his or her product they're about to build. So when they're tossing that PRD around to exec teams or the head of product, it's just more like straightforward. And like you're kind of working behind the scenes, helping him or her like reposition things. So that's one piece. And then another piece a change we've made at Lead is now there's an actual like launch and comms section in the PRD. So we're keeping that all together. A lot of that existed before I showed up, existed kind of retroactively, and it was in different documents and it was kind of after the fact. Again, it's very tactical. It might sound very silly, but we're now bundling that all together. So as this PRD is making its way around the very cross-functional teams, now it's very clear like, oh, look, what's this other tab that's called comms and launch? So even other people, it's like a internal signal of like, there is a plan and you can go glance at it and see like, oh, they're starting to think about the communications plan for this thing. If that lives in a separate document, maybe that's fine, but then you're not giving that awareness necessarily to the teams as they're looking at the PRD. So it's just a really soft, subtle way to start signaling, even internally, like, hey, we're thinking about this. We're starting to think through the activities that are going to go along with this launch.
No, I love tactical. So this is really helpful because I think anyone who's listening and maybe considering product marketing or new to it, it's a proper framework or a proper like actual step-by-step, like here's how you can use it. And even adding those 2 tabs, you're totally right. Like that just already primes people's brains to, okay, we need to start thinking about this already. So yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah. The other thing I would add in is I'm learning, and I'm continuously learning this, is that sometimes the internal launch is, I don't know if more important is the right word, but like just as important as the external launch. And Lead is not a huge organization, but Orem was very small, 50 people, 75 people going to now 300-400 people. It feels like a big jump for me, even there's a lot more stakeholders, a lot more people. And we all have our own things that we're working on. And so like having these internal enablement sessions where you're literally just taking the business development team and the account management team through the feature that's going to launch in a few days or next week, and showing them the guide that's up on the doc site, or showing them a preview of the email that's going to go out, like giving them time and space to ask questions before this thing goes out. Super impactful. And it's really easy to do, but you have to slow down and like actual schedule that enablement session, invite the right people, record it, share it out so others can watch. And that's often, I find, again, just product marketers are kind of that glue that holds a lot of that together. You as the product marketer may not even be leading that session. You might be having a product manager who's doing most of the talking, but you're scheduling it. You're doing a little intro. You're handing it over to him or her to kind of talk through the new feature. You're helping kind of usher that thing along. So that's another very tactical thing that we're trying to get better at lead and do.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That was going to kind of be my next question. Like any rituals or any meetings that you have found, because you're asynchronous. Are you a remote organization or?
Heavily remote. Yep, exactly. We have a few offices, but yeah, I'm remote and everyone I work with is remote. Yep.
So you have to be very good at, like you have to be well organized and know where all the documents are. And I don't know if you use Notion or whatever, but like you want to make sure it's all where it's meant to be and all of these things. So what are some, you've mentioned a few already, really helpful. Any other like rituals or meetings that you found have really helped to make sure everyone's on the same page and synced, and yeah, there's no like surprises when the product launches?
Yeah, there's two other things that come to mind, not necessarily related to product launches, but I would say we have a great meeting every other week that is just a time and space. It's a product design, our account management team, and we get to drive the agenda. Our head of product organized it, but like we get to anyone who's working on something, like you put a bullet on the agenda of what you want to share. It's kind of this space to just share something that you're working on. And in a remote setting, again, that may sound silly, but it's super important because again, you and a few other people might be slaying away on something for weeks or months, but every once in a while you got to come up for air and like show other people the thing, right? So there's things that I've shared that are, I think, really interesting to me. And I just shared, and then I've gotten a lot of like, oh, that was awesome. I didn't even know we were working on that. Or right. So it's just this reminder, like everyone's busy and everyone is kind of heads down on their own thing. So the more you have space just to show something or record a Loom and send it across Slack, whatever it may be, you have to be your own advocate, even in an org that is 500 people. Like you have to be your own voice, be your own advocate, and share what you're working on. The other thing that comes to mind, we haven't done this yet at Lead, but it's, again, something very tactical. It is like the syntax you come up with your Slack channel name. So like how you actually name your Slack channels. Again, you're like, what? Why does that matter? It matters. No, trust me. There's been a syntax. I did not come up with it. Someone from like a blog post of like 2016 wrote it up. I forget who, but it's this beautiful syntax of like how you should name your Slack channels. And there's like different levels of like what is org level communication, what is team level communication, what is project level communication. But it gives everyone, like, there's no surprises. You know exactly where to find things. For the most part, all the Slack channel names are like self-evident. But it's that discovery, like as you land in a new org and you're a new employee, and especially on a remote team, if you can quickly understand what all these new Slack channels mean, it just means you're going to get up to speed that much faster, right? So it's even things like that are very tactile of like how we name our folders on Drive or how we name our channels on Slack. Don't underestimate the power that some of those things can do in a remote team.
I would love to see that blog post. I don't know if you...
I will share. I will send you a link.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very helpful because I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. And also just a thought came to me. What I've noticed is the easiest way to understand a product or a feature, because I guess your team is building it and you have to spend some time understanding it. And I have found the best way to do that is to write. If you write about a feature, you have to really understand it. What is your process for understanding a new feature, which might be complex, especially in banking as a service, right? What is your process for really understanding something very deeply? And what is the output of that? Like, is it a docs, for example, or something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely writing about it for sure. I would say in past lives, one thing that's different about Lead is we are just an API. So like we don't have a UI. We don't have a product I can go look at and like watch someone demo. So it's sitting on calls with other PMs, with our account management team, with our BD team, observing those, like literally just being a fly on the wall to see how they're talking about it, to see what's resonating, see what their talk track is, to see when the light bulb goes off on that for that prospect, right? And like, oh, okay, the way Jake just described, like those two sentences, like, okay, that's repeatable. Like that just clicked for me. So it's a lot of like sitting, listening, and then writing. It is being very vulnerable, thinking you understand something and then putting it in a doc and then getting with the product manager who owns that product and having them beat the heck out of it, right? Having them like really be like, dude, this is way off. Okay, great. Like, tell me more. Like, let me record what you're about to say. Like, beat this up, right? It's taking those moments and like getting on with that product manager and talking them through and like recording the call and then just going back and forth with them until you get it, right? So it is a lot of writing. It's a lot of like kind of throwing stuff at the wall until it really clicks. It's taking other people's writing and going more editor mode because PMs, especially at Lead, they write a lot of great documents, a lot of lengthy documents. It's given me a chance to play more of an editor, and that's helped me as well, where they've done a lot of the heavy lifting describing it, but it's like, I think we can get this thing down to a paragraph instead of 2 pages. But that helps too, just putting your editor hat on where someone else has done a lot of the heavy lifting, and then you can kind of synthesize the key points, and that helps me a lot think through some of these complex concepts.
That's a very good point. Editing is a good one. And also, like, we'll talk about AI eventually, but this is where the risk of using AI is that then you don't understand, because if you're not doing the writing yourself, you're not going to understand it. How are you using it? How are you trying to use it? So obviously it makes you more efficient, but you don't lose I need to understand this feature product well.
Yeah, it's such a good balance. I think we all are at the state where we're using it to like polish up this paragraph, or I know this could be written better and I'm being lazy and, oh, ChatGPT make this better. Oh, that's way better. I'm going to take that version. Like we're all like, that's just like everyone's doing that every day. That's fine. Another way I've been using AI is building bots to sit in with our partner channels we have on Slack and like just surface every questions that our partners are asking us about our doc site, about our documentation. So I get a nice little report every week that says, kind of bundles things like, oh, I'm making this up. You had 7 partners ask about this theme. And that to me is then signaling like, oh, we need to go beef up that section in our doc site. So I think we can all do the former, right? Like using ChatGPT to polish things and clean up. That's great. I think you got to slow down a little bit to think through whatever tools you have at your organization. If there's different AI bots you can build to like take it the next step. But that step for me, where I'm a team of 1 right now, I would love to sit on many partner calls as I can, but I just don't have the time. So this is why I've fired off a bot that can help surface some of those pain points for our documentation, because that's a project I'm pointed at right now. But it's like taking that extra step to think through like, where else can I kind of multiply myself and like get some of these reports that are going to help fuel some of the work streams I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think this is what's interesting about AI is that, yeah, you have to be careful. Like for our own website, all the content that we write, I do not use AI at all because I've already heard it from other people, clients and everything, that it's not that they have forgotten, but their writing is not as good anymore. It's because they're relying too much on AI. And so you have to be quite careful, because if you use it too much, then you lose that skill, which is such an important one, especially in a service economy, remote especially as well. But then you also need to know how or when to use it so that you can maximize whatever your time is, exactly as you said. So it's a weird balance. And that's why anyone who is listening and wants to become a product marketer, don't fall into the temptation of putting everything through AI. You still want to practice and build that writing skill, because if not,
yeah, it's a great point for sure. Yep.
Well, I guess we're on the topic of AI. So what are some other tools that you use? I know on other podcasts, you've mentioned others that looked really interesting. And also you mentioned a bit docs. And I think a lot of companies underuse AI for docs because there's so much interesting and great information in documents, like API documents. What are some ways that you're maybe using AI to get more out of those?
Yeah, great question. So big fanboy of Mintlify. I rolled out Mintlify at Orem. That powers Orem's docs. Then we rolled that out at Lead very quickly when I joined as well, kind of championed that. But I mentioned Mintlify because it's very interesting what they themselves are doing with AI inside their platform. So I think that's another kind of caveat, is it doesn't always have to be like, we need to go get an AI tool to help us with these things. It's like looking at vendors that are kind of that next wave where they're naturally building in AI. They're like AI first into their platform, right? Because Mintlify does a lot of interesting things with using AI to surface gaps in our documentation based on what people are searching. So again, it feels like I have like a writing companion, a technical writer with me that is helping surface things like, hey, this week you had these searches, you should probably go write an article about X. Do you want me to draft up the article for you? And that will get better over time. Some of these drafts are like, that's okay, I've got the nudge now, but I'm going to rewrite all that. That's fine. But even just that step of surfacing it is great, saves me a ton of time. So I think over time, Mintlify and what they're doing with AI is just going to get more deeper and deeper embedded into their platform. And it's been just amazing what's been happening so far with it.
Can you describe what Mintlify does, just in case people don't know?
So Mintlify is essentially an AI-powered documentation platform. So think of anytime you go to a doc site, API docs. For us, it's docs.lead.bank. Orms was docs.orm.io, which I think Orm's docs are still up as of this recording right now. So you can check those up. But those are two examples. Mintlify powers a bunch of doc sites, but it also can be used for internal knowledge bases. That's another use case that we're considering. So if we're in a lead employee, think about all your knowledge that you have on the engineering team. You want to build your own internal wiki. Like if you're SSO'd in as a lead employee, you can go search this thing. So you can build it out for like internal knowledge bases as well, but its primary use case is running and powering documentation sites.
Yeah. Okay, nice. I want to talk about messaging because obviously this is a really big part of what you do as well. And I think one challenge in fintech and financial services, and I would say especially in banking, where you're working with large organizations and you power them, so you're like a really fundamental part of those companies, is messaging to build trust. I think a couple of years ago we had Unit on the podcast, and it was very interesting to break down how they, like, their content is so kind of, I don't want to say in-depth because I mean, everyone will say that. It's more like super specific, lots of diagrams, all these things, because they understood that the people that they were targeting, like, this is a big deal. We need to really be super careful about this. So from a messaging perspective, how do you do that? And maybe you don't have to just talk about lead, but also Orem, because obviously you're still in payments as well. Like, what are some phrases that you use or approaches that you do to kind of enable that trust-focused messaging?
You bet. So there's a framework I've used in past lives, and it really stemmed at Orem, but it's really having a master brand artifact. And lots of marketers will be used to this. It can take different shapes and sizes, but it's really, for us at Orem, it was one slide that housed our entire messaging house, right? You can call it a messaging house, a master brand, whatever you may be, but it was like what Orem, and it changed over time. Maybe, every 6 months we kind of revisit it when we were doing a big launch and kind of repositioning things, we tweaked things, but it really started off with like that elevator pitch of like what Orem does. Then underneath that was the products. And then underneath that was like the benefits of those products, right? But the point is like getting that messaging, and sometimes some of the fonts can get really small because you're really trying to get it on one slide. And again, it sounds very tactical and maybe silly, but like everyone in your organization should darn near have that thing memorized, at least the top half. Like, hey, you work at Orem, what does Orem do? Or hey, you work at Lead, what is Lead? Like, everyone should be saying the same thing. And then as you get further down to that messaging house or that master brand, might get a little more technical or get more into the weeds. But I have found that just getting everyone literally on the same page about your messaging does wonders. There's so many organizations where everyone is talking about things slightly differently. And it may sound okay in that moment. It may sound okay on that sales call. It may sound okay on that podcast. It may sound okay at that event. But like when all that isn't the same, then it just muddies the water. So it's like such an effort to try to distill your messaging down to one page, but then like get everyone in your org to just live and breathe that thing. And there's a lot of effort that can go into just doing that internally. It's like, if we just internally get everyone memorizing this thing, make it your wallpaper on their computer screen, talk about it, like all that stuff. That was a trick I learned at Orem. The chief commercial officer, Greg, that was his idea. And we had part of our master brand, it was our wallpaper. Like we had our IT team make it the wallpaper on everyone's laptop. So it's like you had to stare at this thing every day. But then when you got asked, well, what does Orem do? It's like we all said the same thing and we all knew it. Yeah. So that for me is like step one. Once you get that aligned with exec leadership, then you can talk about the tactical, like, okay, how does this messaging transcend to the website? How does this messaging transcend to how we think about content? How does this messaging transcend to the event we're going to do? But it's like, you got to start with that messaging house or that master brand. Then everything else from that, like, just trickles down.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think one other challenge is that you tell me if this is right, but in banking as a service, it's still quite a new thing, banking as a service, right? And I think maybe the people you're targeting might not be fully understanding of what it's about and how it can help them. How have you tried to do messaging in a way that builds trust, but also translate those really complex kind of topics into something that's understandable? Like what have you found works there?
Great question. I think because we deal with this all the time at Araminta at Lead, where you're coming onto a prospect call and you may have a product manager who's really technical, but then you also have like a CFO or a leadership team who maybe isn't as technical. It's like, wow, these are really different audiences, but those are maybe the two buyers for scoping out Lead or whatever. So I found just understanding the right channel to point those partners at or those prospects at. So one, it's like getting the messaging tight on the marketing website. Maybe that's geared more towards that leadership person, that non-technical person. But then knowing that product manager, you need great technical content. That's probably not going to live on the marketing website. That's going to be more over on the documentation site. So it's like having these different tools, if you will, in the toolbox to know like, oh, after this call, that PM is going to be interested in our API docs. Oh, that sales leader or that leader is going to be interested in the case study. That's not technical, right? They just want to know that we power XYZ solution for Ramp or Stripe or whatever it may be. And it's like having those different things and really understanding the audience, but you have to build those things out. If you don't have a great documentation site and you only have a case study, it's like that PM is going to be annoyed. They could care less about your case study. They want to dive into the weeds and understand the charts and graphs and the technical aspect of your API and its limitations and all that. So it's really thinking about your content across these different mechanisms and then knowing which one is going to really resonate with the buyer, with the audience.
Yeah. And I was going to ask specifically for that non-technical leader who is still a key part of it and maybe has the buying power and also is the one that is a little bit concerned, not concerned, but like, they're like, what is this? I'm not sure. It's quite new. What have you found works best to build trust with them? So you've mentioned case studies, which is great. And obviously having big names will help. But is there anything else that you found will help translate that complexity and also to someone who's non-technical and also build trust?
Yeah, one thing that I'm witnessing like in real time in my 6 months or so far at Lead is just the power of the different SMEs we have internally. So it's like really teasing out that fear, if we'll use that word, or that concern that buyer has. And it's knowing internally like, oh, we have a phenomenal compliance team. Like I'm going to set up a call with our head of risk if that's your concern. And this person, our head of risk they can go deep with you and they are just the cream of the crop. They are experts. They are pros. And that's for all across the org. So it's like, again, it's kind of in the back of your head. You're digging in to understand their fears, their concerns. And then you're almost thinking like, oh, on this next call, I need Danny. Oh, on this next call, I need Lisa. And you're like going through your head of like internally, but even that can be like understanding who the people are, who the experts you are. So yes, it's content, but it's also literally the team you have surrounded yourself and building that as part of like the DNA and culture of getting everyone to say like, of course, I want to stop what I'm doing to go help close a deal. Even though if I'm the head of compliance or whatever, it's never like, well, that's not part of my job. It's like, how can I go help win this deal? Of course, like I'll stop what I'm doing, like book the call, I'll be on it. So it's building that like into the DNA and the fabric of the company that I'm, again, witnessing in real time. That's been really powerful to me to see.
No, that makes total sense. Ultimately, like, and anything B2B all comes down to the experts, right? If you can get them in the room, I always say like content marketing is honestly just extracting the knowledge from the experts and putting it out. Like that's what we do. We're translators.
Absolutely. It's like, hey, I'm going to book a call with you every week for an hour and just start talking to me.
Just tell me.
Just whatever's on your mind. And I'm going to start writing things about it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. The experts are your biggest asset. And so, yeah, you're totally right. Like just take them out on a call. And that's why like we're doing a few episodes on event marketing. And again, when you're doing a booth or hosting an event, having your experts there also is huge to build trust and to have those conversations. You don't want just BDRs or salespeople. You also want the experts there who are going to walk through the prospect on how you work. So yeah, I love that. I also wanted to talk about product launches. So I liked your strategy for Aurum. I'll let you explain it. And I actually was at Money 2020 Vegas when you had it. And I don't know what happened. I think I couldn't find it, or I think you closed before I was able to find it. So I was really upset that I wasn't able to find your booth or not your booth, but your little shop. So can you tell us more about your strategy there? And because it was quite cool. And also in general, maybe how did you interlink that with a product launch?
You bet. So I did not come up with this idea. Kudos to Dre Gitrich. He was the chief commercial officer at Aurum. He's had a wildly successful career. He led content at Mashable and stood up. He's had a very successful career. So he was brilliant at some of these ideas. I got the pleasure of helping execute it. And we did it, I don't know, a handful of times. So actually, funny enough, when Orem got acquired, that was some of the first reactions. I'm like, wait, does this mean no more donut shop? And it's like, oh, that's what everyone cares about. So anyways, the idea was you would launch something big, something meaningful, a product launch a couple weeks before one of these events, whether it's FinTech Meetup or Money 2020. And the reason is you're doing that is then because it's fresh on people's mind, because all the activities are going to happen. The website's going to get updated. The newsletter is going to go out. LinkedIn's going to blow up. So fast forward 2 weeks. Now, instead of people walking by this Orem thing and wondering, well, like, what is Orem? They've seen it in their feed for the last 2 weeks. They've read about it. And now it's just a better like, oh yeah, I saw you guys. Like, what was that thing? It's like, it just speeds up that introduction, right? It speeds up the conversation. But we would buy out a donut shop right at the bottom of the escalators or like right outside the badged area. You had to walk by our space to go to these conferences, right? So we'd buy out this donut shop. We had it for the day or the 2 days, and we had VIP guests come in. We did a photo booth one year where we updated your profile picture, and we gave you the world-renowned photographers took your headshot. And then the following few years, we actually flew in 2 of the world's best baristas and gave you a direct connection to the world's best coffee. And so the product launch always had some, even if it was subtle, direct connection to the thing we were hosting. So we had a product launch announcing our direct connection to the Federal Reserve, and then a play on words, we were giving you a direct connection to the world's best coffee. So there was always some little connection. So it made sense. It's like, yeah, like, and we could talk about it. But when we did these events, we were very intentional of like not talking product. So I agree with you. Like there's a time and a place you want your experts there. We had our experts there. But we are very clear with our sales team, you're not talking product. The goal of them coming through this experience is to get away from the chaos of Money 2020, FinTech, give them a donut, have world's best coffee, and just have a chance to like breathe. If you want to talk shop, set up a meeting for the next day or next week, right? But like let them enjoy this time, because that's what they'll remember. They'll be like, oh gosh, I hope Orem does that thing again, because I need 20 minutes just to get away from all these other people and have a good cup of coffee. Like that's what we want them remembering, right? And then we can do the follow-up stuff afterwards. But it's really hard in those moments to hold on to that and like protect that space, because it's so easy. You want to start talking product, you want to start pitching, all that stuff. So we ran that playbook several times. It was really successful for us. I don't know if anyone else is buying out Donut Teak. That was the donut shop, but it was really fun. And then at the end of the day, we had a bunch of donuts left over that we got to give out to people as well. So that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What do you feel was the impact of that? Like how, obviously there's brand awareness, but from a marketing perspective, how do you think that helped with business development and obviously revenue and all that?
Yeah, it was definitely twofold. It was just brand awareness for sure. We had a brand problem. People knew Orem, but they didn't quite understand what we did. So that was definitely one of the things we were pushing on. But we absolutely were tracking the impact to pipeline, because we obviously knew everyone coming through, and then we could I know there was one of our customers who literally came from a cold DM to me on LinkedIn because they saw it and they wanted a VIP invite. Months later, they became one of our larger enterprise customers. So even those moments as a marketer, being able to track like, oh, and again, it's not just all me, but it's like, oh, we got them a VIP invite because they saw our thing. They DM me on LinkedIn. Like it's fun tracking those little milestones. But yeah, we were tracking all that and good. It was really successful. So we did it again and again a few times after that. So
yeah, no, I love it because, well, in a way I always find it ironic how you could do something that is not sales focused and it could have, I don't know if a bigger impact, but it will have definitely a big impact on pipeline, even if you're not purposely doing it for that. And that's just a weird way how events are like that. And also just how humans we will remember. Like I will remember the brand that gives me a little plushie more than someone who gives me a business card or something, just because I love them and they're so cute and fluffy and whatever. Just humans like that, we're weird, right? We just remember these more cute human moments than, I don't know, something that's more sales driven, right? Or more B2B.
For sure. And it was definitely getting all of us comfortable, the entire org comfortable, knowing this is more of a longer play. Like, yes, we might see a little spike in traffic and sales calls the next few, but we knew it was a longer tail end. It's like, oh, this is going to be a memorable moment. That's what we're trying to build. But if that memorable moment comes back to us 6 months from now and they remember the donut shop, like, job done. That's what we're trying to win. So it was, again, having that patience, having that, like, we know there's going to be a long tail, but that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, this is really good. Well, I want to end on one last topic, which is it's a bit broad, but I think it's an interesting one with LLMs. And it's one that I've thought about a lot, especially as we all start to use LLMs more as a search tool or discoverability tool. And I don't know if you have any experience with this or if you've thought about this, but like, do you feel that as people use LLMs more and more, that this changes a little bit how your docs or your website has to be set up? Because now, instead of maybe going to your docs, I'm already doing this. Like, instead of going to a help page or a customer support page, I will just ask LLMs, like, can I do this in Canva? Can I do this in XYZ? So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And if you, as a product marketer, are maybe designing your docs or doing something in a way to ensure that people can do that?
Yep, totally. There's kind of two paths you can go there. So one is thinking about it and like in your own writing, thinking about how content should be structured and can an LLM read this with different, the way you structure things with H1s and tables and bullets and like thinking through all that, right? Another avenue, back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, is like the tools you're using. So Mintlify builds this in for us already. So it's kind of, they're doing the work for us to ensure that our content is easily accessible for LLMs. And they have some great little add-on components you can add to make sure if you go to one of our pages, you can within one click, then bring that over to your LLM of choice. So it's like, again, finding vendors that are already doing some of this stuff, then it just makes it that much easier for you. Of course, you still have to think about it. But if you know they're kind of building that architecture or that bridge over to the LLMs already, that's one less thing you have to do. You just have to focus on your content and know then that it's getting structured right. And Mintlify is kind of doing some of that heavy lifting for you. So that's been a pleasant surprise that I have found with just picking the right vendors and right platforms to stand up for your tool stack.
Yeah. Not an ad.
It's not. I promise. I love Mintlify, but no, it's not a Mintlify app. You should go find the right tool that works for you and your team and where you're at as a company and all that good stuff, for sure.
And also, just to go back to what you were saying earlier, like this is why also positioning is so important in that brand house that you mentioned. Because if you have different things, if you have different positioning, different statements in different places, then the LLMs will get confused and different things will come up. So that's also another part of that. You want to make sure it's consistent across docs, website, your publications, press releases, all that. Because if not,
I love that. You're absolutely right. Because if you have a founder on a podcast and they're using the same intro sentences that's on the website, that's on the docs, that's on at the event thing, that's in the newsletter that you're like, it's beautiful. And then the LLMs can reference all that. And that's a really great point.
Yeah, that's what they love. Well, amazing. Thanks so much, Brian. This has been super in-depth. I really appreciate everything that you've gone through, all the tactical stuff. This was really helpful. So yeah, thanks so much. It was great to reconnect and I appreciate you having on. Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks for listening. You can find show notes and information about guests at www.mintcopywritingstudios.com/podcast. And finally, huge thanks to Orama.tv for producing this podcast. Thanks for listening and see you at the next episode.